Due to our hosts supposedly having lives that occasionally prevent them from quickly editing podcasts, this episode was recorded far earlier than its release. All series and competitions have moved on since then.
It was Gavaskar, the Real Master, just like a wall. We couldn't know Gavaskar at all, not at all. You know the West Indies couldn't know Gavaskar at all.
Hello and welcome to episode 36. More like to use a journalistic phrase, returning to regularly scheduled programming. This is more rather than a special episode on the Women's World Cup. This is more of a regular episode in our general sequence. That is our resident club cricketer, also part-time squash player, Siddhant Pradhan. This is Aditya Devrat, the respected journalist. We are going to in Ridhiman Saha's words, respected journalist. And we are just going to preview all three of the upcoming Test series. It's a action-packed month for Test cricket, actually, with these series coming up.
Bizarrely action-packed March for
March,
Test cricket.
Yeah.
Especially, action-packed March rather for Test cricket.
Yeah, especially the Australia tour of Pakistan, which is what we're probably going to focus on the most, because that's just it's a pretty big moment. Australia, how long has it been? Like some 27 years or something since the last.
In 24 years, the last tour of
24 years since the last tour.
Pakistan was 24 years ago. And on that note, we will very quickly switch into the roundup.
Yes. The roundup hasn't really been much cricket since we last spoke. Since we last recorded. There's been the India-Sri Lanka T20 series, which, to the surprise of no one, India won 3-0. I guess just the positives, just good to see Shreyas Iyer doing well in that series. Did not get dismissed at all. Literally does not have an average for this series because he scored 50s in every single game without getting out.
It's amazing that he has an average. He doesn't have an average. Like that's like when all-time great lists and it's like scored 779 runs or whatever it is at an average of so and so. Here it's just like the average in here. Average kahan gaya?
Yes, exactly. That was good to see. We finally got to see Mohammad Siraj play a T20 match.
T20
after
game.
God knows
That
how
was
long.
good to see. I know, right?
He played in the last one. That's pretty much it. I do have to say, you mentioned this before the series, and just giving those props. Sri Lanka's fast bowling is pretty good. It was pretty threatening in especially on that Dharamshala pitch. It was they do have some players.
I think Dharamshala is the closest you're going to get in India outside of maybe the western part of the country to what you get in Australia. And if Sri Lanka are going to unleash those two on Australian wickets, God knows what's going to happen. That's they're quick, man. Both Chamira and Lairu Kumara are quick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kumara was Lairu Kumara ended up being the leading wicket taker in the series. So it's pretty good series for him.
Yeah. So the other big bonus for Sri Lanka was the performances from Dustin Shanaka, who I thought was brilliant with the bat.
He probably might get a T20, an IPL call-up, especially now that someone like Jason Roy is going to skip the tournament. Let's see if that happens.
Doubtful. Anyway, moving on from there, we'll go back to the Antipodes. It's my new favorite word. I was told that there's a place that does Antipodean brunch in Manchester. Anyway, I had to Google.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I had to Google what that meant. Anyway, now I actually understand. It's literally the Southern Hemisphere. Anyways, and a clash of two Antipodean heavyweights in South Africa.
Clearly, you didn't Google well enough.
No. Antipodean heavyweights, South Africa and New Zealand. So the first test ended in South Africa getting absolutely spanked all over Hagley Oval and then being bowled out for 111 and 96 or something like that.
Yeah.
And
huge innings victory for New Zealand. But they bounced back really well.
Bounced back really well. First test 100 for both Sarel Erwi and Kyle Verreynne.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, fabulous to see South Africa doing well in Test cricket again. Drawn series in New Zealand. Oh, and just so you know, that is the first time, I think it's the first time in close to 28 Test matches that New Zealand have, and the first time in a long time that New Zealand have drawn two series in the same summer at home.
That's interesting. That was not the stat I had picked out for the series, but that's a pretty good one. The one I was going to mention is that second test that South Africa won was the first time since 2010, I believe, that a visiting team won a test match in New Zealand after batting first. And it was a pretty bold call by Dean Elgar to bat first after winning the toss. No one ever does that in New Zealand, but especially after their first test performance with the bat, pretty bold call paid off.
South Africa also did something very rare in New Zealand. They played a spinner. And Maharaj proved it, but proved everyone right. Took 3 wickets in the second innings. But really, it was the batting. They scored 300 for the first time in the first innings in a long time. Got ahead. Brilliant second innings to get the lead up to where they wanted it. And then they bowled really well on the last day to secure that test match.
Yeah, Kagiso Rabada, by the way, spitting fire throughout that match.
Hey, Rabada's class, man. You can't argue with him. But what a prospect Marco Jansen has proved to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
at that height, oddly enough, at that height, he the one thing he needs to really add to his arsenal is a good bouncer. Funnily enough,
that's funny, right? But he's basically Mohammad Irfan, but with skill.
And with an ability to bowl without being called for chucking.
Okay, also that. Moving on very quickly, something that we have forgotten. It's been nearly 3 weeks since this happened, but India actually ended up winning the Under-19 World Cup. And
yeah, pretty comprehensive victory against England in the final. Actually, it was expected to be a close match because England had performed really well up till that point. But India's a bit of an Under-19 juggernaut. I think there's like 5 or 6 straight finals that they've reached, and they've won 3 or 4 of them. They were defending champions, obviously. Wait, I may have gotten that wrong. They won in 2018.
They won in 2018.
They won in 2018. They didn't win in 2020. Sorry. But yeah, they lost in the final. That was against Bangladesh. Surprising. Some great finds. Yash Dhul being the main one. He's captain of the side. Great batting performances.
The real reason we brought this up so late on is because of what's happened in the Ranji Trophy. Yash Dhul scoring 200s in the same game, I believe.
Yeah, century in each innings on his Ranji Trophy debut.
Yeah.
For Delhi. Great talent. And of course, we're going to overhype it now. You've already told me to calm down about this, but we're going to start putting him into senior 11s. Test ODIs, T20s very soon. At least, or we're going to start clamoring for him to be put into. Whether the selectors follow suit, we don't know. But also some of the fast bowlers as well. Hangargekar was a good find. Ravi Kumar had a great last 2 games. I'm forgetting the name of the one who's what is his name?
Raj Bawa.
Yes. I knew, and I was going to say the Bawa one, but I didn't want to say it. I forgot that was his actual last name. Also did not want to just say the Bawa one. But yes.
The Bawa one. And contrary to believe, he probably isn't Parsi.
Oh, right. I forgot about this. He's actually not Parsi. But yes, good all-round talent. In fact, even Hangargekar has the ability to hit. Now, whether that's an Umesh Yadav style ability to hit or Hardik Pandya style ability to hit, we don't know. But yes.
You're talking too much now. Anyway, moving on to the rest of Ranji Trophy. There were hundreds and 2 wins incident. Sorry, 1 win and a draw for Bombay. Big thing because we're both originally from Bombay, and we want our side to dominate the Ranji Trophy like they've always done. And hundreds for Sarfaraz Khan, a couple of 50s for him as well in the couple of games that he played. Also 100 for Ajinkya Rahane on his return to the Ranji Trophy after being dropped from the Test match team. But we will get to that in a minute.
There was an excellent thing because Pujara and Rahane both finally got dropped. And in the first match of the Ranji Trophy, they're playing against each other. Rahane scores a century, Pujara scores a 90 in the second innings.
But no, it's just great to have the Ranji Trophy back. Honestly, we're not going to get into too much detail on it because there's so many games to cover. And it's almost impossible to do that on a segment as short as this. So on that very happy note, it is time that we'll quickly move on to the rest of our episode. We include 3 separate series previews on this one. So strap yourselves in. Here we go.
And since we were talking about people being dropped from the India squad, let's start with the India-Sri Lanka series. Yes, that was the big news. The thing that we've been waiting for a long time. Rahane and Pujara finally got dropped. As did Ishant Sharma, who's seemingly his Test career is also coming to a close, which was a lot more surprising, I think, compared to Rahane and Pujara.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Ishant Sharma in the squad, but I also see the reasons why. I just feel that especially in Indian conditions, on 2 slightly sluggish wickets. I mean, Bangalore's never been the quickest, and Mohali definitely isn't the quickest anymore. Yeah. You're going to. I mean, the use for Ishant Sharma as a bowler in Indian conditions is obviously over the years also decreased quite a bit. Having said that, I mean, Jared Kimber alluded to this. The averages for fast bowlers in the world has dropped dramatically, and nowhere has that been more stark than in India, where I think the runs per wicket has dropped by something like 10 or 15.
Yeah, India suddenly is one of the best places for fast bowling, even with sluggish pitches. And also probably makes a difference that we finally have a really good crop of fast bowlers.
I think it has a lot less to do with the conditions and more to do with the personnel that we have now.
Yeah, and we have players who have succeeded abroad, but they also know how to bowl fast on Indian pitches. So we should see 2 of Bumrah, Shami, and Umesh probably in the 11. If we're going with 3 spinners, which is what we normally do at home.
I mean, you have Jadeja as the all-rounder. You have Ashwin, who doubles up as an all-rounder because it's bloody Sri Lanka.
Ashwin's playing is subject to a fitness test. He may miss the first test altogether. Same with Akshar Patel. Actually, he's also
it's not going to matter. They'll get either one will pass a fitness test, and they'll Sri Lanka will get bowled out. Or who knows? You may even see Jayant Yadav taking a 6 for or something. God knows.
I do think Jayant Yadav is going to end up playing in the series at some point.
Yeah, but remember, Jayant Yadav also could double up as an all-rounder. He does have a Test match 100 to his name. So
which we both watched live.
Which you watched live. I was not there.
You were not there for all 5 days. I forgot. Okay, I was there for all 5 days. So we are talking about an India-England Test match in 2016 in Bombay.
Yes, everyone knows which Test match we're talking about. Moving on, of course, that was where Virat Kohli scored a double 100 and then, captained us to victory. It's also his 100 Test. The first game of the series is 100 Test match. That's in Mohali. Now, apparently, that has been the games have been swapped over because of bubble requirements, which actually makes sense because the trip from Dharamshala to Mohali is a lot shorter than the trip from Dharamshala to Bangalore, which basically means you have to go through Mohali.
And the trip from Bangalore back to Sri Lanka for the Sri Lankan side is again much shorter.
Much shorter.
Easier for them. Yeah.
So, I mean, logistically, it makes sense. But it is Sri Lanka. The only really interesting thing in this series is you're going to see a completely new Indian middle order. Who bats 3, who bats 5, nobody knows.
Yeah. 3 contenders for 2 spots, basically. You've got Shubman Gill, you've got Hanuma Vihari, and you've got Shreyas Iyer. The latest thing I've seen is people saying Shubman Gill at 3 and Vihari at 5 or 6. You move Pant a little higher into the order, possibly. Be really harsh on Shreyas Iyer if in his last test assignment, he scored a century at home, and then he doesn't get picked when finally the people blocking his spots, Rahane and Pujara, aren't in the side.
It'll be interesting to see who they go with. Personally, and this is again nothing to do with Vihari, but I just feel that Vihari is, for me, a little too defensive. I think I want someone with a bit of tempo about him. So I think I would go Shreyas Iyer and Shubman Gill. But obviously, Vihari's been there. He's done the hard yards. He's scored the hard runs away from home, and it's his time to play at home as well. So it'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing. Obviously, I despite what I feel, I think he will get a game. But yeah, again, interesting to see that. And really, the test matches all depend on whether Sri Lanka can bat or not, or rather how long they can bat. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. No surprises. We're expecting a clear 2-0 win for India.
Yes, we are. I think the other really big talking point we had was, you alluded to it briefly, but the tinfoil hatting and conspiracy theories that we've been flying around about Virat Kohli's 100th test, which we should basically, Indian cricket Twitter is just a fun place to be, because the amount of theories and mud that gets slung around. So obviously everyone knows the backdrop. There seems to have been a lot of a fairly big standoff between the BCCI and Kohli over the last few months, with the whole captaincy sagas and all of that. Bangalore is pretty much Kohli's adopted home, because that's where he plays his IPL cricket. It was going to be his 100th test until they swapped the venues around. So there was some amount of conspiracies happening that, they did that on purpose to punish him or whatever. Then, of course, the whole thing happened. Look, by the way, Kohli's 100th test is going to happen in an empty stadium, because there aren't fans being allowed into Mohali at the moment. As it so happens, today they've announced that they are going to have 50% capacity for that test match. So
only 3 days before the game starts. We will, however, revisit this later on in our episode. Right, moving on from India, we will just shoot straight across the border. Pakistan versus Australia.
Yeah, which is, like I said, I mean, it should be box office. Pakistan at home, we've not really seen them, I guess, in a long time, especially playing this level of opposition. It's been a while. So we kind of don't know what the pitches are going to be like. But
it's a bit sad that there's only 2 test matches.
It's not 2 test matches, is it? 3 test matches.
Is it 3? I think it's
3. I'm pretty sure it's 3. I'm not going to check this, but I'm pretty sure it's 3.
Fact checker in action.
First test, second test, third test. There you go. Yep, there are 3.
Okay,
tests.
sorry, 3 test matches. Yeah, Pakistan is an interesting place because you don't really know what you're going to get. I think if you were playing a team like India or Sri Lanka, they'd probably produce venues that are a bit more conducive to fast bowling. I mean, of course, there's not been much recent presence. There's only been 2 test series since they've resumed test cricket in Pakistan. And they haven't produced pitches that turn. Having said that, they have left Yasir Shah out of their team. So if that doesn't give you an idea of what's going to happen,
yeah,
the Pakistanis, I don't know what is. There's so many unknowns about this. The thing is that, and also, if you've seen today's news, Fahim Ashraf and Hassan Ali are both out of the series with long-term injuries, and Haris Rauf.
Yes.
Rauf is going to. My God, my diction is tangled today. Haris Rauf is going to miss the test match with the first test, at least with COVID. So, lots of change. So we don't know what lineup we're going to get with Pakistan. The only damn near certainties are 3 people. And I'll tell you who those 3 are. Their names, 4 people. Azhar Ali, Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan, and Shaheen Afridi. Those are the only damn near certainties in the Pakistani team. Australia are an interesting one. They're alleging that they will play 2 spinners, but who knows what's really going to happen.
I just can't see it happening.
I will give you one thing.
Unless it shows up like they go up and they're getting an absolute dust bowl, I can't see them playing 2 spinners rather.
No, I will say one thing though. The only person who's going to play spin really, really well because of all the practice he did on fucking I don't know, mat with like holes in it was Labuschagne.
Yes, that's going to be interesting because I think a lot of us, well, I don't know if we're wishing for this, but we are expecting that his average finally does drop from that insane start he's had, and that he's played most of his cricket, most of his cricket at home, feasted on bowling on home pitches. Let's see if he can replicate that in Pakistan now.
Yeah, the thing with Manis is the more you talk about his average, the more he dreams about increasing it.
I mean, if he ends up replacing Steve Smith as Australia's next best batsman after Bradman, that would be something.
I must say though, Manis is by far one of the most likable Aussies.
He is. There's a reason for that. He's not Aussie. He's from South Africa.
This might be true. But I mean, Australia are a good side. You'll have the usual suspects in the fast bowling department. You'll have Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins, the captain, Josh Hazlewood as well. The other spinners, obviously, Nathan Lyon will play. You have Mitchell Swepson and Ashton Agar, death threats notwithstanding, on standby. Usman Khwaja's in the squad. He's been giving interviews in Urdu lately.
It's kind of like how we were talking about Iraj Patel when New Zealand toured, because he was basically coming back home. It's pretty much the same thing for Khwaja, and there was a really nice picture that showed up of him as a child somewhere, in his hometown in Pakistan, like just swinging a bat when he must have been like 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, interesting, but I mean, brilliant for people like that. It's honestly, it feels more like a bit of a party and a bit of a historic moment, because bear in mind, this is the first series between Australia and Pakistan in 24 years. The last time Australia went to Pakistan, Mark Taylor was still captain. They won the series there, actually, believe it or not.
Well, that's believable.
Yeah,
that part of the Aussie, that time of the Aussie side, they were pretty much the best team everywhere.
Well, remember, this is 1998. They just lost a test series in India. They went to Pakistan and beat Pakistan. And this is a Pakistan side that, let me remind everybody, included such stalwarts as Saeed Anwar, Inzamam ul Haq, Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunus, Mushtaq Ahmed, Saklan Mushtaq, Moin Khan, Ijaz Ahmed. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't. Oh, Mohammad Yusuf as well. Oh, he was Yusuf Yan at that point.
Fair enough. No, it was a strong Pakistan side, but Australia had sort of ascended to. They weren't at their Steve Waugh levels yet, but they were definitely like ascending to best team everywhere. India was a challenge for them until that 2005 series, obviously. But I'm not surprised that their last series was a win.
Also, Mark Taylor scored his only triple hundred in that series on one of the flattest pitches anyone will ever see in life, Peshawar, which I don't think Pakistan, I don't think Australia are playing at this time. Anyway, interesting. There's so much into the unknown here. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Be marvelous to see.
Triple centuries around. Do we want to put a bet on the fact that there might be a triple century in the series? Because you're saying Taylor. When I think Pakistan, I just remember Sehwag's triple as well in Pakistan. So maybe Pakistan's the ground, the country for this. Wasn't Hayden's triple also in Pakistan, or was it not?
No,
sorry, that was Zimbabwe.
That was in Perth against Zimbabwe.
Against Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Predictions? Fuck knows, man.
I'm gonna hedge my bets and say it's a 1-1 series with a draw.
Okay, 1-1 draw. Yeah, I would say the same thing, because you're just sort of blinking into the unknown. They're both good sides with both merits and demerits to them. Australia may be the more complete team. However, Pakistan have home advantage.
Yeah, and also some really good players in their lineup.
No, yeah, for sure. So yeah, it could be very interesting. Just God knows what's going to happen, honestly. We'll go 1-1. We'll stick to 1-1.
Yeah. Also, just to put it in perspective, in the World Test Championship perspective, thanks to England being as shit as they are, Australia are probably favorites to make the final at the moment because of the 4 tests they won at home. So if Pakistan and Australia being competitive against each other rather than either side being one-sided will just knock everyone's percentage down a bit.
Yeah, no, that should be interesting to watch. Right, moving on to our third and final one. It is the Frank Walter Trophy. I'm not quite sure it's still called that, is it? Oh no, sorry. Frank Walter Trophy is West Indies in Australia. It is the Wisden Trophy, but I'm not quite sure it's called that still.
Can they just call it the Groveling Trophy?
Okay, so this is. It really should just be called the Calypso Collapso Trophy. Nobody knows who we're talking about. It's England versus the West Indies. Listen, this is one of those series where again you're sort of hedging your bets into the unknown because they're both terrible.
And especially.
I mean, having said that, because it's so even, it is going to make for some fascinating cricket.
It should, yeah, exactly. Their batting is terrible. Both have, in fact, West Indies probably have the better fast bowling attack, especially for home pitches. So we should see some fun collapses.
What, are we going to get 40 all out all over again? 48 all out or whatever it was.
You never know. You never know. Listen,
you never know.
The way England have batted over the last year and a half or so, I wouldn't put anything past them. And the West Indies are the West Indies. So,
okay. So we came to a conclusion between the two of us that here's what's going to happen in the series. Right. So, I mean, this is one of those series where forget about both batting lineups, both bowling lineups, catching, all of that. Rory Burns is not there, so England will probably drop a hell of a lot less catches. That is one, but it's literally about who scores less.
Yeah. It's highly unlikely, but I want to see a test match where all 4 innings end with less than 100 runs.
Do you know what? If they produce a green seamer, it is very likely.
It's definitely possible.
No, so really the key in this series is can the West Indies get Root? If they get Root, then the rest of the batting lineup's a breeze. If they don't get Root, God knows what's going to
happen. It should be a little bit, I don't know if easy is the right word, but Root is batting at 3, which he has historically struggled at, largely because the England openers have been shit for a long time. That brings him in too early. So that might be a plus for the West Indies. And then, of course, the rest of the batting lineup is also a bit unknown. You've got Dan Lawrence at 4. I think Alex Lees is going to open because they've dropped.
Yeah, Alex Lees is going to open.
Yeah. No Broad Anderson. We've talked about that before. We were really surprised at this, I think. But Jared Kimber did a great deep dive on how the averages are pretty good everywhere, because obviously they are good bowlers. But when they travel when they travel for Test series, their strike rates drop a lot, and they take fewer wickets per series. So this may have been the right time to rest them and try out new bowlers for away tests.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether they play Saqib Mahmood, because that's the one I want to see in the team. But Mark Wood's a nigh uncertainty to play, so is Chris Woakes probably. For the West Indies, you'd look at Alzarri Joseph. There's no Shannon Gabriel in the squad, remember. So you'll have Jaden Seals and obviously Jason Holder as well, who doubles up as the all-rounder. The interesting thing is the spinner that they've picked. And no matter who says what, I don't agree. Any guesses as to who they've picked and why I'm so angry with this selection?
Are you angry, or are you just like extremely amused?
Oh, he's gonna get slaughtered. That's a different story. By England, no less. But hang on. Wait. Sorry. Let me classify this. The last time England were in the West Indies, they made Roston Chase look like bloody Ravi Ashwin. So who knows?
You never know.
You never know. They might make Pamal look like bloody Bishop Bedi. So, you know. Yeah. So, quick
Can I,
predictions before we move on.
can you give some history on why you hate Visami Kumar so much?
I watched him in a test series in India in 2011, and this is in India. The man didn't spin a single ball. Let me just in like big, like bold letters. In India, he didn't spin a ball.
Speaking of really amusing selections, so I'll make this really quick. John Campbell somehow is still in the side.
Still in the squad. Yeah, bizarre, just bizarre. The West Indies squad doesn't really make sense, but who knows? That's only for the first test, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Also, he's not in. As far as I know, he's not in the test squad. But I discovered something today. There's a West Indian bowler called Brian Charles. Just Brian Charles. I really want to. I want to meet this. I want to meet this guy's parents, because like, why would you do that to a kid?
So that is taking the piss to a whole other level, and he's a bowler, not even a batsman. He's a bowler.
Can you imagine if he had been a batsman? That it just would never have stopped.
Would never have stopped. Anyway, quick predictions. I'm going West Indies 2-0. I think one will get out or something.
I am too. Or 2-1. I think West Indies will wrap up
let's go 2-1.
Yeah,
West Indies
and then lose a test.
Yeah, and then lose a test. But all in all, we're in for a very interesting series because both teams are just so rubbish. You never know what's going to happen. Literally, you're right, there could be a test match that ends with everyone getting bowled out for below 100. And it could end inside of 2 days. Not that England are unfamiliar to that, but still. Getting my shots in while I can. And on that very happy note, it is time to move into my favorite segment of the show. It's a very understated one today, isn't it? What is it called? It's called the No Balls Cricket Awards.
Because it's an understated one, you had to overdo the intro to it. It seems.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because we had a bumper awards one last week, and I think this one is just going to be a far milder version of it. Only 2 awards to give out today.
Well, 3. One proper one, and then yes.
We do actually have a no ball from no ball wicket from let's call it proper cricket. Shaheen Shah Afridi from the PSL Eliminator, I believe.
Yes, got Hassan Ali, I think it was, off a no ball. Then for good measure,
no part of that statement sounds right.
Then for good measure, took a wicket off the free hit ball as well. I mean, obviously that was never going to count, but
never going to
got us it.
Yeah. The fact that it's Hassan Ali makes it even funnier, but because of all of that, Shaheen Shah Afridi, you are our winner of the No Balls Cricket Award, new first-time winner.
Yes. Also, I did remember one more thing we had to mention on this at this point. Rob Moody put out a video of Temba Bavuma's first ball. Yes, the South African batsman has actually bowled also. And he had Usman Khwaja plumb, and then we're talking, this is years ago now. This is not a new development, but he had Usman Khwaja plumb in front of the wicket, LBW, nailed, only for it to be a no ball. And we were considering renaming this episode, the award for this episode, the Temba Bavuma Award, because of this.
So, yeah, it is from now on henceforth called the Temba Bavuma Award.
Yes, the Shaheen Shah, you won the Bavuma Award.
You have won the Bavuma Award for this week. Moving on, we are going to give 2 awards, one not so serious, one rather serious.
Yes.
The first award comes from the flip-flop of the week. And that award, of course, goes to our world's favorite cricket board, governed by the supreme leaders themselves, the BCCI. You win the award for flip-flopping. Just a little just a little.
Let's be a little desi, no? Let's call it the Chappal Award. It has so many more connotations.
The Chappal Award of the week goes to the BCCI. Basically, they said that there were going to be no crowds at the Mohali Test match, Kohli's 100th Test. We've already alluded to this earlier in the episode, but there was a bunch of tweets that were sent out about how the BCCI is so unfair on him and there's an agenda and all of that. And 3 days before the Test match, they have relented, and now there will be crowds to witness Virat Kohli's 100th Test match. So the king getting his, well, 50% coronation, I would say, basically.
Yes, should be good. Sunil Gavaskar, of course, has already put the pressure on him, saying he should score 100 in his 100th test. Let's see.
I don't know how many have done it, but if I'm not mistaken, there are only 4 or 5 people that have scored 100 in their 100 test match. So it'll be interesting to see if he becomes one. And lastly, on a very serious note, our first ever Nobel's Cricket Humanitarian Award for the week goes to none other than Romania's favorite cricketer, Pavel Florin. The absolute legend that he is has driven from Cluj to the border with Ukraine to hand out humanitarian aid. I mean, what a gentleman, what an amazing human being.
Yeah, and given the situation in Ukraine right now, like things like that, just the impact that they have, like that's a very well-deserved award, such as it is coming from us.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pavel Florin, you are a new winner of the Nobel's Cricket Humanitarian Gandhi Award. We'll find a better name for it in due time. But since we are Indian, let's call it the Gandhi Award for now. Maybe next week I'll call it the Dalai Lama Award, God knows. On that very, very happy and funny note, on that light note, rather, after the seriousness of the award, it is time to end. Thank you very much for watching. Do check out our women's cricket special. That'll be up as well. And yeah, have a good rest of your week and join us again.
Yep. See you guys.
If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to remain notified of all our upcoming videos. And if you're listening to us on any of these audio platforms, we're available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, and Pocket Casts as well.